What's up, man?
Hey, man, how are you?
I'm good. I think I was calling you at the exact same time.
Oh, man, same wavelength.
I know, man. It's
right on schedule.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
How you doing, man? Are you surviving the post Super Bowl letdown?
I mean, it wasn't really a letdown for me. I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan of either.
Yeah. But
I did make a pick that was wrong. I
thought for a minute there we were right on the money.
Yeah, seriously, I was pretty close. But
Atlanta a blowout there.
Yeah, but no, things are good. I'm actually lacing up a new pair of Newtons as we speak.
Oh, Newton. And today's podcast is brought to you by Newton.
Yes, sponsored by Newton, Sir Isaac.
And I wear Newton as well, so I'm just throwing it out there.
Which one do you wear?
The obsolete ones. I get used to a shoe, and then they don't make it the next year, and then
dude, I know.
I buy like 5 pair of them, and then I stick with them. Honest to God, I don't even know which one it is. It's the orange one.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure if they still make them. I was wearing the Ahas, and then they discontinued those, and I never like track my mileage or anything. I just kind of go by feel, and I ran. This is like last June, I think, and I ran one of my longer runs before Wisconsin. So I did probably like 16 or 17 miles, and I was just wrecked the day after. And I was like, man, I'm really hurting. And I went down and grabbed my shoes, and I had a hole in the bottom.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I ran through pretty good. So I went had kind of the same feeling after my long run Sunday, and called down there to see if they still had my size and style. And they're like, yeah, you bought your last pair on July 1st. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's probably time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
good.
My Newtons, I'm still going with the 4-luggers. They went to a 5-lug system, and now I think they've actually reincorporated a 4-lug new version, so I might try that out. But you had a long run. It was 2:15. You're training for Leadville, which is an insane ultra. Did you do 2:15?
Yeah.
Was that the one you're talking about, or 2:30? I can't remember.
I did. It was 2:20 on Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that most people are like, that's not a long run, in marathon training.
It's still pretty long. I'm
not saying it's not. I'm just saying that you're training for a 100-miler and you're like thinking that's a long run.
Well, I mean, if you think about it in the scope of things, it's 7 months away.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of people's long runs, actual runs outside of a race, won't get terribly long. I can see a lot that run just like 20s on the weekend, and then like every 4 weeks they want a bigger one. But I was also doing that. There was like a month stretch there before Wisconsin where I was hitting 20, 20, 22 every week with on top of the other training. So it's not a huge jump, but yeah, we'll see. Progress is progress.
Progress is progress. Now, we do want to get into a topic today, and I thought a nice segue topic would be, since we already mentioned the Super Bowl, but I don't want to talk about the Super Bowl per se, but I'd like to talk about it in terms of, like, let's say the Super Bowl was actually an Ironman race. Okay, it's your big, or half, or whatever your big event is. Because I heard an interview with Belichick a couple weeks before the Super Bowl, and he was talking about the biggest challenge with being in a Super Bowl is pacing and patience. And it goes down to the moment you actually win the game to get in the Super Bowl. So you got the biggest thing coming. It's your biggest game of the year. It's your biggest race of the year. And then, I mean, we always talk about this, like, I think that's exactly sort of what played out in this game, was that Atlanta came out with this intensity and just was running all over the field and looked like it would be a blowout. But what we forget is that is a long, long game, especially the Super Bowl with timeouts and TV and halftime and all that. And I think it's applicable to an Ironman, in terms of your pacing and your patience. And you talk about that all the time. And do you think that's a good analogy?
Oh, I think it's a great one. I think we even touched on this, I don't know, a couple of weeks back in one of the other podcasts, but, and I'll I would say that applies to the Super Bowl and oftentimes in Ironman racing, but more often than not, games are not won; they're lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think the Falcons lost that game. I mean, they did everything they could in the second half to lose that game. And the same could be said, like we've talked about before in Ironman racing, is more people lose their race, through through decisions made on the first half or the swim or especially the first half of the ride. More Ironman races are lost in the first 56 miles of the ride and the first 10 miles of the run.
Oh, yeah.
Period. In no other area of the race than those right there are the most, and it's all about going out too fast and being too much in a rush. And I think a lot of that comes with a lack of confidence.
I think you're right. I do want to back it up just a hair because a lot of what he was talking about was, that the Super Bowl pre-week and the hype and the what's going on before you actually get on the field. And I think a lot of times, at least I can speak from my experience. My first Ironman race, I was absolutely freaking out about what's going in my bags, how I'm preparing, when I'm doing my swim, when I'm doing all this stuff, and it seemed overwhelming, and I'm sure that's how first time Super Bowl participants feel. And my thought on that was that going into that race, I mean, I think the key is, now that I've done a few of them, is really keeping that pregame stuff simplistic. And I think that comes down to planning, obviously, but over time, like literally when I went to my first Ironman Wisconsin, I brought every piece of triathlon equipment, everything I could think of. It was literally in a separate suitcase. I mean, dude, I had knee warmers and, elbow. I mean, it was just like health bands, like all this stuff. And when I started unloading that, it really complicated my pregame. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And now I just really try to. My in-race nutrition is usually based on what they're serving, and I don't get overloaded with extra ingredients that I bring along with me. And I know you do the same. I mean,
I'm very much a minimalist when it comes to packing. I am now, at least. I mean, I used to be just like, write out a list, a mile long to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. I don't even do that now. I just kind of like, pretty sure I got it off. I don't. Heck, I can just buy it at the expo.
Right. Extra wheel sets. I mean, I was bringing everything, man.
But when I've always been this way, that once I get somewhere, I just want to sit in my hotel room and chill. I don't like spending time at the expo. I don't like to wait in line for things. I just kind of like to get away and be somewhere where I'm the most comfortable. That's just kind of how I've always been.
Yeah. Well, we are going to have some crushing iron gatherings, though.
That's true. I'm all about that.
Yeah. Get together. So then you go into the race, and you're saying you burn it out in the first half of the bike typically. And that's where a lot of people lose their race, like the Falcons did in the first half. I mean, you could tell they were just doing everything they could do just to hold on at the end of that game. But I just think it's an interesting analogy because I watch, obviously we both watch college football a lot, and we talk about this, and usually that's kind of the MO of a team like Alabama. You think, oh man, they look terrible, and then by the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter, they just start mowing people down because they pace it so well. And they don't get overexcited about it, and they don't obsess on it. And that's that is exactly where we're going with this topic today, which is basically obsessive versus harmonious passion. And you sent me this article link, and it's a great article. I think that it is so typical for anybody that's new in the sport, or like that gets exposed to all the new stuff that's involved with triathlon, whether it's just this big new toy to play with in your mind, and you just get obsessed with it. And I think in sports in general, it covers that path. But this concept of obsession with your passion versus a harmonious passion is really one that it struck a chord with me, and obviously with you as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's the most common downfall that we see in the sport. I think there really is. I mean, I don't think it's a perfect answer to this either, but there's just such a fine line between obsessive pursuit, and a process-oriented lifestyle, and most of it just heaps and heaps on the external expectations that just are out in the world today anyway. It's all about what you can show or say you do or have in your title that seems to matter to most people. It's just total lack of authenticity. But for me at least, I know that my passion for it was anything but harmonious for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. It was obsessive. Mine kind of blended in between we'll definitely link this article in the show notes, but and you'll see another Brad Stolberg article Robbie likes, but it was from the Science of Us. And
you're obsessed with that guy, man.
He's a dude. Have you read anything from his you don't like? I mean, he's got great stuff. I love his approach.
Yeah.
And it's always about mindset and ways to make your life better within sport, and not necessarily make sport your life.
Mm-hmm. Let me just read this real quick thing out here, because I want to set him up. Since we just talked about it. He says, with obsessive passion, people tie their self-worth to the validation an activity may bring, and become more passionate about that than about doing the activity itself. Okay, so it's this reward system.
It's about title acquisition. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's what the world that we live in now is based upon, like I just said. It's about title acquisition. I have done this. I was thinking about it earlier today and getting prepared for the podcast. Was like, so often we become our A race.
Yeah.
Wait, what? So, what are you doing this year? Got anything big going? Yeah, I'm doing Ironman this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what else are you doing? Well, I got to train for Ironman, and it immediately defines you. It is you became something material.
Yeah.
And that's in the whole entire year. You begin to lose yourself within this obsessive pursuit and with this obsessive passion for X. And this goes to any other aspect of your life. He talks about business. He talked about the Enron CEO, Jeffrey Skilling, a lot about, it's all about passion. It's about passion. It's about passion. And he talks about A-Rod and some other people and kind of their pitfalls.
Mm-hmm. But eventually that passion bites you because you're passionate in the wrong way. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, your passion only runs out when you really give yourself only one way for it to be successful.
Yeah. And
even generally, when you find and you become and embody that type of personality, it's still not good enough. Me finishing Ironman, then it's me going sub 10, and then is it me qualifying for Kona. And then, so when is it good enough?
Yeah.
You're always chasing something. You never are there.
Mm-hmm. I like what he said about when you have that perspective on passion, or you have that type of passion, any failure along the way feels like a personal attack.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because you have attached your self-worth to this expectation. And so any downfall or shortcoming is like taking some just totally negative criticism about you as a person, and that you're not good enough, or you'll never be able to succeed. And it was one of his other lines was, our very success can be the cause of a greater anxiety for further preservation of our success.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like
it's a never-ending cycle.
It is. It's a never-ending cycle, and I think it's common for so many triathletes, and you see it every year around, I don't know, maybe even probably August, September, October, November, is right when you get about a month out from your biggest event of the year. What do you automatically do? Start thinking about next year.
Yeah.
Every time. I mean, it happens all the time. It's happened to me before. I'm like, what about? Because you've gotten to the end, but you don't want it to win. So your way it says your further preservation is to make sure I've got something else to fall back on, because this is all I have, and not all I have, but this is what I'm basically attached myself to.
Yeah.
And so I better make sure I've still got something to attach to.
Yeah. It is the crazy cycle, because, I mean, especially when I think back to my first one, after I finished that race, and, you fly on that high for, at least 48 hours. But even the next day, I was like so excited to see what people were saying about my accomplishment. And I was tied to that, man. That made me feel like, okay, I just set out to do this race, and then these people noticed, they responded, they took me even higher. But man, there was no doubt in my mind that I was doing it for the wrong reasons about 2 weeks later, because I just crashed hard, man. I had nothing left. It was that medal, and that was the end. I didn't have a game plan for life after that. I had just went ballistic on a pursuit of passion to finish that race. And it was like, after that, man, there was nothing. And it's just like, it was that cycle of wanting, craving more fame, more money, more medals, whatever it may be. And as we talk about this, it really makes me think that I need to, continue working hard to get out of that and live for the pursuit of the activity itself, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's the pursuit of personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just the avenue in which you choose to express and define and find that growth, which can always change. And that's where you can't tie yourself to a certain event or activity to define you. And I did it for the longest time. I got to do something this year. Got to do this. Got to do that. Got to qualify for this. Got to try to do this. And you just live in a world of trying tos and never haves. Mm-hmm. And so you get no real fulfillment besides just having this like very unhealthy. I don't even want to call it a passion. You just this very unhealthy approach to validating thoughts and feelings that are really not ones that you want to validate, just because they're not true to yourself and where you want to head. And that's why I think there can be so much a much better way, as he gets talking through the article, to find a better kind of passion, and which is what I hope people take from the podcast today is to find a better kind of a passion, and it for like he says, refers to as a harmonious passion. And emerges when a person becomes wrapped in an activity primarily for the joy of doing the activity itself. Mm-hmm. And that was something I emailed you, earlier this week I sent you an athlete survey that I had sent out for a new prospective athlete. Yeah, I loved that. I loved it. And I showed you, I said, when I emailed her back to figure out if we'd be a good fit, I said number 3, I knew unequivocally that we would be a good fit. Mm-hmm. And it had absolutely nothing to do with athletic accomplishment or achievement. It was, I won't use this person's name, but You know, I asked, I always like to know what people's favorite moment is so far in the sport. And part of this person's answer was, I like the feeling of meeting another goal and surprising myself when I'm finally able to break through some new level. But the truth is, I also like the peace of running in the morning while other people sleep, watching the baby resident deer growing, joining the master swim group in the outside pool at 5:30 in the morning, watching the sunrise together, and then the feeling of getting stronger while finding moments of peace.
Yeah.
Like that is what the sport is all about. And what you saw in that answer and what I saw was not definement of an accomplishment, but of a acceptance and just a real harmonious passion with the process this person's in, by making it generally an everyday life experience versus a outrageous expectation.
Yeah, and I fully understand that. I was obsessed, with just being focused on one thing. And I think if what the harmonious passion is, a lot to do with patience, and it's understanding that, and feeling that slow growth, paying attention to it. It's not always easy to see the improvements, and a lot of times you tie that improvement to that final time at a race or whatever. But I mean, the reality is you could feel really strong, really enjoy that day just like any other day, and move on the next day and it wasn't the end of the world. And the patience piece that she's talking about with that, the joy she gets in the moment of all of that is more important, in the long run. It's about that moment. It isn't about the moment that's 8 months from now, controlling every, cycle of your head thought.
Yeah, I mean, another great answer when you said that just popped in my head was, I had an answer a couple weeks ago from another athlete that said, it was crossing the finish line with my kids at a Rev 3 event.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like setting that example, and that sticks out as you as a moment and an experience, not, not a time, it's not the PRs that stick with you. It's you can't. They always say about this about heaven. You can't take it with you.
Mm-hmm.
And sport is so much like that. Scroll through your Rolodex or your address book in your phone, and it's someday you're not going to be a triathlete anymore. How many of these people that you connect with and that's all you talk to about are still going to be there when you give it up? And it's the experiences and the people that you have them with, and then especially just the ones from yourself that are what you derive the most personal growth from, is that healthy, harmonious passion. And all honestly, if I had chosen to continue my obsessive pursuit this year of a certain time or a certain qualification for triathlon, and just not being okay, not doing one this year and just doing Leadville, then I would have been a hypocrite, and because I would have been strictly doing the obsessive passion and trying to make it, because I've been a triathlete for God, it seems like forever. And saying that I'm not going to do one this year, it's man, but it's I don't even care, because it's not who I am. It's not my identity. Mm-hmm. I just want to enjoy what I'm doing. And somebody asked me the other day, it's what are you doing this year? That's always the question. What are you doing this year? I said, I'm being a dad.
Yeah.
Because that's the most important thing. It's not defined of who I am, but it's a very, very tough animal, because in order to reach the top, it's got to be very, very difficult to balance. And I think that's where a support system from family or spouse and even coach can help you keep that in perspective, to hopefully guide you down a path that's sustainable and not one where you're going to burn out on, which is what happens a lot in triathlon. Is mental, emotional burnout before physical.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very hard to accept this concept of, doing the work, and that can translate into, like you said, your job or your daily activities or whatever. And we're not, it's more about a balance in general. But like even to do the work for passion, like for the enjoyment of it, your job or whatever, that's very difficult because we're in a sort of I got to get mine society. I mean, that's sort of the what the thing you always see is like, get yours, don't get screwed or whatever like that. But man, a lot of times when I'm just, I do a lot of these, obviously over the years I've done these triathlon videos where I'll go out to Ironman races and just shoot video of people enjoying the day and enjoying their experience, and then I'll put it into a kind of a tribute video. And man, those are some of the most enjoyable times I have with video editing, and that's what I do and shooting and everything. But you know what I get out of that? Like financially? Zero. Nothing.
Yep.
But man, when I'm in that moment of shooting a race or editing the video, I just get such a joy out of like making it as good as I can make it. And it really, that's one of those times when I become a better video shooter and editor because I'm doing it from this expressive point of passion, and like, but it's reeled in, it's not, I'm not trying to get anything out of it except I suppose maybe, helping people commemorate their race or enjoy it. I like, I'll check the hits and see how many views it gets and things like that, but it's never like an overwhelmingly drive of mine. And that's sort of been the key with the which I always notice is, I started writing Crushing Iron, the blog, when I started this race, and it was almost like that was the balancing piece for me, is that I just love to explore the process in it. And then, that seemed to be when I would get more in touch with what was really going on too. Instead of going out there to try and crush every workout or whatever, I'd sit back and go, man, I really hated that today. Why? Or what was going on there? So I think in a lot of ways writing about triathlon and sorting through my reasonings as to why I was doing certain things and why certain things were happening was the ultimate beneficial piece in my training. Because as there was a lot of times when I would just go like haywire off the deep end, like as into different places that had nothing to do with triathlon per se, but it was all about human growth. And I think that's what kept me grounded in a way. And I think in a lot of ways, us talking about this is a good thing too. It just keeps us really reeled in as to what the purpose is. And we can't always just come out with, 10 ways to make your run faster. You know what I mean? It's like, it's such a psychological thing. The best way to, make your run faster is probably just to do it in a way that feels good and keeps you healthy.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it's such a balancing act. Is before you can kind of figure out how to balance it, you have to figure out what you actually need to balance, and that comes with failures and pitfalls and unhealthy approaches to a certain race or a certain or in business or in life, or who am I friends with and how much money do I make, and that kind of stuff. And it takes those failures to kind of like realize, all right, I need to get it together. And one of the best compliments that I got this year so far was from one of my newer athletes' wives.
Oh.
We're not going there, but was just kidding.
You look good in spandex.
Thanks you. I do. Thanks. Just want to let you know how much we have appreciated working with you. It's been really good for him so far, and it's been really great for our family too to have so much balance. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And that's it. I'm not able to provide that kind of outlook to an athlete without having already suffered the pitfalls of knowing what imbalance
Yeah.
and obsessive passion looks like. And then that's why I love coaching so much now, is like sometimes, honestly, and I told you this earlier this week, like sometimes I feel like when I'm coaching, I'm more of like a wellness life coach than I am a triathlete coach. But it's because over, the last 10 years and what I've gone through, like I know why people fail.
Yeah.
And I know
You've lived it, dude.
I've lived it, and I've lived the success, and I know what it's like, and I know what the symptoms and the signs are of somebody who's losing the grasp and the battle of their healthy relationship with the sport.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so much about telling an athlete no than it is to go get on your bike and do this. I'm like, nah, man, just take the day off or enjoy the time with your family. And the more you do that, the more you can enrich and instill with these athletes and friends that it's about the appropriate approach. And that's what breeds longevity. And it's that longevity that actually allows you to have your greatest success. Mm-hmm. Because this is actually kind of an excerpt from the book that he's writing, and it's called Peak Performance.
Oh.
And he's writing with a bunch of like just incredibly world-renowned human performance coaches, and you have to be because your passion for certain things, material things, die. It can't last forever, and that's why you have to have this appropriate approach to it, and it might not be shiny and pretty and something you want to see and post all the time, but it's also something that you have for yourself.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite paragraph of the whole entire chapter was, he says, ask yourself, when you sit down to write, are you sitting down to write or are you sitting down to sell books? Mm-hmm. When you show up to work, are you doing so to learn and make a meaningful contribution or to get promoted and earn bonuses? When you train and compete, is it to get better and master your body or to win awards or improve in the rankings? When you love, be it a partner or a child, are you doing it so to nurture an intimate bond or so that you can chronicle your relationship on social media? The lion's share of your passion should not come from the outside, but it should come from within.
Yeah, I like that paragraph too, man. If I may, I like to, because you were my first coach, and I gotta just honestly, these are the things that I really knew you had, and I don't know if that's because I don't know, I just sensed it sort of on a visceral level, but obviously you were back in the more of an obsessive passion phase, but I always knew this about you, and you've gone through a lot of stuff, and you've really just sort of let this stuff come to the surface, and you are definitely taking a different approach, and it's very cool, and it's kind of like the stuff I think I was struggling with at the same time. I think we are both similar in that sense that so I mean, I guess the point is I think this is an important conversation because I believe that most of us probably have these elements or these questions inside of us, and now it's we're at a point, you and I especially, where we are really, I guess for lack of a better word, serious about this type of an approach, right? Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, mine is a now that I'm here, and I know my path to get here. I can't seem to take any path that doesn't have a lot of crap in it, but it takes you're supposed to take the path you're supposed to take. And the reason it's so important to me is that I know what it's done for me, and it's done for my approach and my overall being to approach the sport, just sports and hobbies in general. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't start with the sport. It should start with you.
Right.
And writing, and I was even looking at this the other day through my planner from last year when I started. I was like, what do you want to accomplish the year? What do you not want to do? And one of them was like, I don't want to lose time with Hayden. I don't want to miss time with, as a young family. I don't want to overcommit. I don't want to give myself ridiculous expectations. And none of them are times. And some of it was, do a trail race. It was a bunch of new stuff. And I think doing other things, new things, like for me, Leadville is more about exploring this newfound healthy passion than it is changing sports. Because I know I'll do triathlon again. I love it. I enjoy being good at it. I enjoy the pursuit of trying to find out how good I can get. But right now, I'm also okay with that pursuit looking totally different. There would have been a time in my life when if somebody was like, so what are you doing this year? I'm like, nothing. I've been like, I'm going to feel like such a loser.
Yeah.
Like, like I'm not doing a freaking triathlon, so people are going to think less of me. How absolutely asinine is that? It's a bummer, man. I don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight. How am I going to tell you tomorrow that I haven't chose to spend $800 on a race where I get to run around sweaty in spandex all day, probably get chafed in places I don't want to, maybe or maybe not get the time I want to, and then not walk for 2 weeks. God, I don't know how I'm going to live with myself, but it's true. It's totally true. Because at some point it was so attached to my identity that if I didn't have that, then I didn't know who I was.
But I don't really want to because I do love. There's something about the sport that we love, obviously, and I don't want this to come off either as don't compete or don't kind of, you know what I mean? But I think that just in general, I've made no secret that Chattanooga 70.3 is my A race this year, and I do want to go after it, but I do find myself working out in a different manner this time. I'm not leaving myself empty after workouts, and I think that is obviously sort of what happens sometimes after a race because I don't know about you, but after you just said, limping and all that sort of stuff like that, but there's just a general sense of depletion that comes after doing an Ironman or any kind of triathlon the next week or so, that your body is like, what in the world did you just do to me, kind of thing. And I think most people feel that, I would imagine, and I just don't want that feeling to be cyclical in my life. I mean, what's the point of doing workouts to the point where you have to you feel like you're just completely drained, like on empty, and then work your way back up and keep repeat. So I'm just taking this cycle of working out to the point where I feel strong and then leaving it at that, so I don't know, it's just something much more enjoyable. Whether it'll translate into a really strong race for me, I don't know, but I do know that there's something to be said for believing in yourself, in believing that you're getting stronger, and believing that you're going to go into that race with a game plan and something that you've been thinking about and for the right reason. And if you don't get it, then okay, it's not going to kill you.
Exactly. And I agree with you. I mean, this is definitely not anti-triathlon. I love the sport. I love what it does for me, and it's done for my family and the friends I've made. I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you right now,
right?
Or for the sport, for a lot of things. And it's not that. This is an overall conversation for just approach and passion in general. And I'm just using triathlon as an example because it's what I know. If I was a basketball player, I'd use basketball or baseball or whatever it is. And and I think you hit it on the nail on the head, and we even touched on this the other week, was that you're leaving something on the table is a sign of what I would consider emotional maturity, because it doesn't have to be some PR epic legendary breaking social media worthy workout. You
Yeah.
just did it because you enjoyed it and you liked it and you wanted to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's part of finding that harmonious passion, and that's what you want to have, and that's where people see the most success, and that's why you're seeing so much success right now. And frankly, your biggest downfall from your whole whole triathlon career has been consistency.
Yeah.
And if you can find, and it sounds like you have it right now, is that healthy, harmonious passion that leads to consistency. And consistency is the number one factor of success across all sports.
And
It's not athletic ability. It's not how much money you have or the resources you have. It's consistency and it's availability. And, for me right now, it's running. I just love to run. More often than not, my workouts aren't fancy. They're just and I can't wait to go run just for the sake of going to run. If I didn't have that, running 5 or 6 days a week, knowing what I have to be in front of me would sound daunting and not exciting.
yeah.
And that's where we find ourselves when we have that balance. It's like, I feel like we should probably put a list together of like warning signs. You have obsessive passion versus harmonious passion. It's like, and we talk about it all the time. It's like, I have to do this right, or I have to do this, or not being able to, here's a great one. Do you feel more guilty skipping a ride than you feel skipping out on time with friends or family to go do a ride? It's like examples like those I think are good signs of like how your passion, like what area it's kind of lending itself to. And again, like I'm just using triathlon as an example because it's my experience. And then I even went through it with swimming. Growing up, I swam year round. And I was a very, very, very good swimmer. When I was 13, 14, I was the anchor leg on our freestyle relay and 2 other guys on that relay ended up going to the Olympic trials. And when I was 15, I remember I was doing a kicking set at the Concord Road Y, underneath the bubble, and I just burst into tears. Because I was kicking so hard, I literally just couldn't feel my leg because it didn't hurt anymore.
Wow.
Like it wasn't like crying because like it hurt. I was crying because I was like working as hard as I could, and it just wasn't painful. And I got out of the pool in the middle of the set, and I looked at my coach, Lisa Richards, and I said, I quit.
Wow.
And I never swam year round again. I swam summer league because summer league was fun. And if you're out there listening, and you swim, or you swim competitively growing up, you know the difference between year round swimming and summer league. Like I'd swim in like my long like swimsuit trunks and not my Speedo, and I was still in good shape. I would still win, so it was fun. But it was the mentality, and it was the relaxed environment. And so anyway, I know what it's like, and that's why I walked away from swimming. I never looked back. I called my parents and said, "Come pick me up." I quit.
Wow.
And it was, but you can accomplish this. You can get this. I could have gotten a full ride scholarship to college. I had so many things, but I just didn't have it in me. It became something I hated versus something I loved and looked forward to. Because even at that age, and I think it's really common, is my association with the sport, and this is the same with relationships too, was totally unhealthy and imbalanced, to where I was giving everything I had to this sport and getting nothing in return.
Yeah.
And just like it can be with relationships with people, you give so much and you pour in so much for whatever reason, whether it be self-validation or codependency or whatever it is, and then you get nothing.
Yeah.
And that's when you're like, man, I'm empty trying to fill myself with you, and I'm still like a bottomless pit of nothing. And you can find that way, and you can find that feeling within sport, or you can find it to fill yourself with the good.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story. I mean, first of all, yesterday I was getting gas and I saw a woman run by me, and I was like, wow, she's going after it. And she wasn't running like super fast, but she was just running. And then when I left the gas station, I drove probably 2 or 3 blocks, and she was standing on the sidewalk, and she was in tears. And it wasn't like exhaustion tears. She's just standing there, and I could see that she was like wiping her face. And I was at a stop sign, and I was kind of watching her, and I'm like, wow. It reminded me of when I was back home one time, and our neighbor kid, who was he was a little punk kid, and he actually is in prison now, but he was a nice kid. And when you got him kind of alone, and one time, like I remember him saying to me, like, I was out running or something, and I came back, and he just walked over and he goes, "Hey man, what are you running from?" And I was like, what? But that's what kicked in my head when I saw this girl on the side of the road crying. Because I've had that feeling when I've been out running, and, just sort of, I don't know if it's like this swell of emotions. It's like, what the hell is going on here? I mean, why do I have to go this far when I don't really feel like doing this right now, And it's back to your point about swimming, it's like, what? You just hit a point. So it's like, how far? I think that's the thing in general is, like, if you let that go so far out of whack, eventually you're just going to shut the door on it and not ever want to see it again. And that is like a fear, because that's not the reason we got into this sport. And initially, it's not the real reason. And I think a lot of times you have to figure that out, because it's sort of like the last paragraph of this article says, perhaps the ultimate difference between obsessive and harmonious passion comes down to how you define success. When the success that you strive for is closely tied to external validation, your passions and your health are likely to suffer. But when the success that you strive for is related to the experience of doing the activity itself, to the internal satisfaction that comes from giving something your all, then your passions and your life are likely to be more harmonious. And I just thought, wow, that's really strong,
Yeah, I mean, it's about, like you're talking about, it's about the total overall approach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about fulfillment, internal fulfillment, not external validation.
Right.
And being okay with taking days off, and being okay with choosing to do this over this. And not obsessing and stressing about missing things, because if your approach is right, then you're not really missing anything. You're more like disappointed and sad that you didn't get to experience it today,
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that you should be able to get over, because you can be excited to do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not, I lost my identity for today, I better go get it back tomorrow, which is a common. A common pitfall, one that you and I have, definitely both, fell into. So if you're listening, like, that's the gist of this cast is, it's always good to just ask yourself, do a personal inventory on where you stand, and a lot of people probably just haven't even asked themselves these questions, which is totally normal. Hell, it took me 10 years to. So, why do I do the sport? What do I get out of it? What do I want to get more out of it? And then find ways to kind of limit your tendency to make it an obsessive passion versus harmonious passion.
Yeah. And it's, it's like right now I feel like I'm going to go to the pool this afternoon, and I really want to go. There was I think I've brought this up with you before, but there was, it was kind of, I read a lot about Zen and meditation and things like this, and there was a martial arts guy talking about this one time, and he said, exercise is supposed to give you energy, not take it away. And every once in a while I remember that, and I just think it's so powerful, because lately I've been going to the pool, going to do my swim, and not, like I said, depleting. It's sort of like that moderation, balance with intensity that I'm striving to hit, and not going to the pool, swimming so hard that I come home and immediately need a nap, and then I just have to eat like everything in sight to just get my sort of balance back,
Yeah.
And I think, I do that with running. I do that with everything. And there's no sense in that to me, because it really takes away, because it leaves a, scar in the sense of like, no, man, so I remember that the next time I want to go swim, bike, or run, I remember my last experience, and it makes it harder to get back out there if it was a bad one, or if it wiped me out, because like now I'm going to the pool and I'm swimming to my level. I'm not overstepping that bounds. And I've been wanting to go back to the pool more and more, because I keep it in stride and I keep it within my reach. And a lot of times we go outside of that box and just disrupt everything. It's like, it's the same thing as when I used to be in college, and I never drank coffee, but around finals I would just sit in the Union with my buddies, study all night drinking coffee, and then it's going to the exam, and the result was whatever it was. It certainly wasn't going to be better than if I had studied in small doses along the way. I would blow everything off along the way, and then for whatever reason get swept up in this like all night coffee jam, and then I would sleep for like 3 days after finals. That's just so imbalanced.
Right.
And I think we have, with the type A personalities that are in triathlon or something, I think there's that tendency, right?
Oh, absolutely.
To go, I haven't ridden in a while. I need to go do 6 hours because, and then how is that going to affect you, It's just going to screw up the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyway. crushingiron@gmail.com. We love your emails, and we love to respond to them and build new friendships and things like that. And I think we've done that with several people, so we appreciate that. We'll answer any questions, or we love to hear your stories on this type of stuff as well, and just build that community. We've got also email me or email crushingiron@gmail if you want to get in. We've started a new Facebook group that's private, that we can kind of go in there and talk with each other. It's not really doing anything yet, but we'd like to get more people involved. And that's kind of where I'm at, man. What else is going on?
That's it. That's all I got. Looking forward to my the temperature just like dropped here, so I'm gonna put on some extra clothes, but it was like 60 here yesterday and it's like 25 right now, so I'm gonna bundle up, go enjoy my run, and go pick up Hayden from daycare and call it a day.
All right, man. Harmonious passion. Follow.
That's it.
All right. Thanks for checking in, everybody. It's good talking to you, Robbie.
Yeah. See ya.
All right.